Could Australians be facing blackouts this summer? Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian Heise here. Thanks for joining me for another episode. Got my stein of coffee and I thought we would look at something very interesting with regards to the risk of blackouts and electricity supplies in Australia this summer. Now this is a release from the Australian Energy Market Operator, AEOM. So we'll read through this and then have a look at their report, just the summary, and maybe theorycraft as to why certain states in Australia may be at risk of not meeting their energy needs during summer. Just particular states. Now there could be something about these states that might be causing this issue. And we'll see if we can puzzle it together. And I'm intentionally being sarcastic because we all know what it is. So the Australian Energy Market Operator has today released its 2019 Electricity Statement of Opportunities, ESOO, which forecasts tight electricity supply-demand conditions in several states for the upcoming 2019-2020 summer, and highlights the need for short and long-term investment in dispatchable resources and transmissions. I buggered up that word. Dispatchable resources and transmission. The ESOO is developed annually to forecast electricity supply reliability in the national electricity market over a 10-year period and is designed to inform the decision-making processes of market participants, new investors, and policymakers. For the first time, this ESOO also considered whether there was a sufficient resource need to trigger an obligation on retailers under the Retailer Reliability Obligation, RRO. Well, I'm learning lots of new things here today. The 2019 ESOO forecast a continued elevated risk of expected unserved energy use over the next 10 years compared to last year's ESOO forecast. AEMO observes greater risk of load shedding due to uncontrollable but increasingly likely high impact tail risk events such as simultaneous unplanned outages during hot days. For the immediate summer, findings highlight the impact of major generation outages in Victoria and the need for additional reserve resources and reflect the measured impact of a deterioration of reliability of aging thermal generators. But we've replaced all of these aging thermal generators with brand spanking new sustainable methods of electricity generators. Aren't they meeting the same requirements? I mean, these plants all have such high megawatt ratings. I wonder. Beyond 2020, AEMO I'll call it, forecast only slight improvements in reliability for peak summer periods until new transmission and dispatchable supply and demand resources become available, with the situation to further worsen following the gradual closure of the Little Power Station. Well, there you go. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. With all the money we have invested in sustainable capacity, let's jump over here and we'll have a look. This is the Aneroid Energy website, and you can see the Australian energy market, and this is correct at 10:05 when I'm recording it, and I'll just reload it. And this is a great way to see, particularly on the eastern coast of Australia, because we know there's nothing on this part of Australia, nothing there. Just a bit of dirt and, Perth, and that's it. But and then we wonder why they have a separatist movement. But you can see the east coast, the energy production. Down here you've got the different types of production: fossil, hydro, renewable, solar, and wind. And you've got the utilization rate. So red means it's at 90% or greater than 90%. Orange is 60, yellow is 30, green is above 0, and pale or white is nothing. So let's have a look at Victoria. And we can see here, this is... What's going on here? Why am I not... Oh yeah, we can see here, wind farm output, 44%. 65 of 148 megawatts. Wind farm output, 93% of 107. So that's going good. You've got one here a bit lower or a bit higher, 80%. You know, another wind farm. So lots of wind farms in Victoria, and it varies. Like here you go, 29%. So when they've got a market capacity of this, what they're actually producing is very different. And it changes throughout the day, and we'll have a look at some of those other figures. But you can see here what each state has for their power production and what they're rating. Let's have a look at Queensland. You know, power plant, 89%. Power plant, 80%. You know, solar farm, 84%. But you've got to remember that changes. You've got one here. Look at this, 40 megawatts. Gas turbine, nothing. Nothing. So they've decommissioned those, or they're getting repaired, or something's happening. You know, here we go, solar farm, 1% of 92 megawatts. So I don't know what's happening there, why it's so low. But this is a great way just to get an appreciation of the generation in the different areas. And let's have a look. We'll just jump here to, this is our wind energy production. This is the wind production in Australia. And you can just see the graph here of their production rates over a day, over a 24-hour period. This is percentage of capacity, and we change this to megawatts. You can see the difference here. So percentage of capacity is all over the show. Megawatts, that's down the bottom here. Let's have a look just at Victoria, because that's going to be one of the issues raised in here. So we can see, you know, today's wind energy production in megawatts in Victoria. Look at the changes. Look at the spikes and changes that's happening. We got a percentage. This shows you the capacity of the facilities. I mean, look how that's changing. But then we'll compare it to good old fossil. You can see here, this is a bit of a mess, not as much as a mess of the wind, but we'll just simplify it and go to turn on only Victoria again. And you can see here, turn off the total, you can see here. So that's percentage. Then if we go to megawatt, it's a much cleaner and consistent set of lines, isn't it, than compared to wind. I would say it's almost more reliable of a resource. And that's just the way it is. Solar as well. I mean, the problem with solar is I can't analyze it at this level, but you can have a look here at our solar energy production. And we'll just jump here and we'll look at Victoria now. You can see here they've got brown coal as a big portion, biggest portion of the energy. Then you've got natural gas, tiny bit. You've got water, very little. Wind. So wind is, you know, a fairly consistent chunk over the last day. But depending on the time you go to this website, this will be different because it's updated data. But here's the thing. Here's solar. Look at that big gap at night time when it's mostly used. Rooftop solar as well. So it's a decent, you know, respectable amount either side of night. So all this capex that's spent from here to here. So we'll just have a look at this. And by capex, I mean, you know, capital expenditure. Look at that period when it's not generating any revenue, when it's not making any money. You need to think about that in these terms. I mean, it sounds good. And the rooftop solar, okay, it depends. I'm skeptical of it in a domestic environment. I mean, my neighbor just over there, he's got rooftop solar, he's generating power and he's selling it back to the grid. Fantastic. It's not getting used. I mean, sure, it's probably feeding into my house right now. That would be funny if that's actually how it worked. But the thing is, you know, I'd be having solar here on my, my house. It'd be fantastic because I'm working all the time at home. It should be on businesses. So yeah, that's just a great resource to get a bit of an understanding of where our energy is coming from and how intermittent it is, how unreliable some of these sources are. So let's jump back to this article. So here we go. The impact of the retirement of one unit at Little Power Station in April 2022 begins to tighten the reserve situations in New South Wales, culminating in an increased use level in 23-24 following the closure of the remaining units. However, as the use level is forecast within the expected 0.002% across these years, it does not meet the material reliability gap threshold that would require AEMO to trigger the RRO in 12 months' time. The analysis does, however, highlight that, as in Victoria this summer, following the gradual closure of Lidl, a combination of high summer demand and unplanned generator outages will leave the region exposed to significant supply gaps and involuntary load shedding during peak electricity demands, unless mitigating actions are taken in advance. AEMO's Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Audrey Zibelman, said that the analysis demonstrates the need for urgent action and prudent planning and investment in the sector to deliver affordable and reliable electricity supply to Australian consumers all year round, but particularly during the summer period. They're saying this after Australia has had significant investment in our energy infrastructure. Okay? All of these wind farms that are dotted all over the map here, all of this wind farm capacity all over the map, all of this solar capacity all over the map. We've had significant investment over the last decades. And I need to look it up, but it exists. And yet they are still saying urgent action needs to be taken place. And prudent planning. Prudent planning. There you go. So, has our investment in sustainable energy generation resources or capacity, has it paid off? Has it worked? Judging by this, I'd be skeptical. And I am skeptical. So, AEMO has already commenced work with the industry throughout the NEM and is working closely with governments to prepare for this summer by securing additional resources to meet peak summer demands. However, while expected and allowed for under current rules, we are finding this type of reactive action is imposing higher costs on consumers and risks to reliability which are not sustainable over the longer term. There you go. So guys, this is why your power is going up. This is why your power bill is more expensive. But solar and renewables are cheaper, Florian. They're cheaper because I say so. Because it's subsidized. A more measured course is to take a number of deliberate actions that address the challenges of our aging coal fleet and which meet the need for secure and dispatchable supply whilst taking advantage of Australia's natural resources. We need to harness all the resources we have in the system, together with the opportunities that come with the technology advancement in the industry to meet current and future energy demands at the lowest possible cost. Well, what resources do we have in Australia? We've got one radioactive resource that we export. Look at the cost of electricity in different parts of the world. When I was doing crypto mining, when I had all these computer rigs just sitting there in the office, because I'd let the staff go, so I said, well, I'm going to try my hand at crypto mining. So I had all these machines blaring away, mining crypto. And when you do the calculations, this is during the boom when it was worth a lot of money. In the United States, you could probably get away and do it just on home, workstations with high-end graphics cards for architecture. You could make a profit in the States because the power costs were so much lower than here in Australia. Here in Australia, you would be lucky to break even for your electricity costs, let alone the wear and tear on your equipment. There's no way you could make a profit. It's completely unviable here. And we're the innovation nation, yet we're using energy sources that are causing consumer demand to drive up. Our coal fleet of power generation is just getting older and older, and we're dropping the ball. We're dropping the ball. So that's have a look at the cost of energy around the world, guys. If you haven't done a search, you'll be really angry. You'll be really angry. That's what really woke me up to a lot of this stuff. It's what really pissed me off, to be honest. AEMO has identified several pragmatic actions that should be taken to avoid consumer exposure to an unreasonable level of risk in involuntary load shedding during peak summer periods. Some of these actions are currently underway, such as AEMO's Summer Readiness Plan and the planning and commissioning of targeted transmission augmentation, and others required changes to rules and or additions to AEMO's authority. Further actions identified include several changes that will support better outcomes for reliability and affordability. These include the introduction of a new reliability standard designed to assure that each region has sufficient resources to meet peak demand requirements during 90% of the time. This is more typical standard used internationally. Oh, this is just politics. The development of new markets for essential services so AEMO can more effectively pay suppliers for all resources required to maintain the reliability and security of the physical system, the acceleration of critical upgrades and constructions of interconnectors and transmissions to enable better use of existing and new supply resources, and the ability to produce and operate a 3-year strategic reserve to minimize the need to pay a premium for emergency power. I want to look at how this 3-year strategic reserve, I am interested in learning more about that. The development of a more reliable and secure power system does not equate to a more expensive one. Well, no, it's the opposite. Having a less reliable and less secure power system is more expensive. And depending on energy production technology that is intermittent, at best, isn't. Let's look at New South Wales. You can see here, black coal, still the majority. So if they lose capacity in some of these power plants, if they have to shut a few of them down, you can see how that's going to make a tremendous impact. A tremendous impact on the generation. So, at present, AEMO does not have the tools or mechanisms to enable cost-effective access to sufficient resources for all hours of the year. So we're forced to use more emergency actions than that impose unnecessary risk and cost on consumers, just at a time where the goal is to pursue more cost-effective outcomes. To achieve our goal, we're working closely with industry, the Commonwealth and state governments, to pursue with necessary speed and adoption of changes required to deliver affordable, secure and reliable energy to Australian consumers this year and in the future. So, I'm getting really I'm getting the feeling of a centrally planned body trying to manage the market and incompetent investment in sustainable energy production for political purposes that is now costing Australians on a day-to-day basis. That's the feeling I'm getting from all of this. Let's jump in quickly and have a look at their report, and I will link to this if you'd like to go through it in detail. But I thought we'll just have a look at the, look at the executive summary. We'll just go through the key findings of the report here. So AEMO forecast tightly balanced supply and demand in several NEM regions for the summer 2019-2020, with all regions other than Victoria expected to meet the current reliability standard of expected use, not exceeding 0.002%. In Victoria, if extended into the peak summer period, the unplanned outages of 2 major power stations, Long Yong A2 and Mortlake 2, pose a significant risk of insufficient supply that could lead to a material involuntary load shedding. These units have announced a planned return to service in late December 2019, based on historic experience with similar plant failures, and in light of the extended repairs that are required. AEMO's analysts assume a 30% likelihood that Loy Yang A unit outage will extend over the summer, and a 60% probability that the Mortlake unit outage will extend into the summer months. Well, just increase the capacity of the wind, guys. Make the wind plants produce more. What? You can't control that? Why not? Make more green sacrifices to the climate god. Come on. Slaughter more lambs or whatever. Well, no, they wouldn't do that. Throw more vegan soy boys down the volcano to appease Greta. Come on. We're just seeing bad planning in a socialist state. The assumed extended outages of either of these units, in combination with a number of other operating risks, including the continued deterioration of the reliability of aging brown coal units, result in Victoria having an expected use of 0.0026 for the coming summer. The additional resource capability required in Victoria is projected to be between 125 megawatts and 560 megawatts to close the gap to the current reliability standard, or reduce the likelihood of exceeding the standard to a 1 in 10 year event, respectively. However, if both power station outages were extended over the summer, and if no additional supply was secured, involuntary load shedding may be experienced in Victoria during extreme weather events, potentially over multiple events, equivalent to between 260 to 1.3 million households without power for 4 hours. 4 hours. In a modern first world country. Now let's look at this, 125 to 560 megawatts. And we'll jump back here to this website and we will have a look. Let's look at just Victoria here. So here we go, we've got a coal plant. That's 380 megawatts for one of those coal plants. Long B, 583. So it's running at 117% of capacity right now. Oh, sorry, at 10:15 in the morning. I'll refresh. 10:35. I've been talking for a long time. There you go, 116% of capacity. Is that going to be good for the equipment, for the machinery, for the plant? Maybe the engineers can let us know. Okay? And let's look at these wind ones. Oh, wait, they've all gone down. 47%, 47%. So here you've got, okay, you've got a wind farm with a capacity of 420 megawatts, but it's only running at 52%. And you've got a coal plant here at 500 megawatts, which is running at 582 megawatts, which is at 116%. This we can control. This we can't. Okay? You can't control it. I mean, we'll look here. Where's some of the solar stuff they've got down here? Oh, they went so heavy in wind. Damn. Got a solar plant. There you go, 46%. So if we jump back here and we look at see the capacity that Victoria needs, like another coal plant, another huge coal plant. Okay? So it could affect 260 to 1.3 million households. Is that acceptable? Does that show good planning? Okay? Because remember, all the money that goes into this other infrastructure means there's less investment in upgrading the coal capacity. And I know, guys, you want to save the planet with your virtue signaling, but just think how many people could die if their houses are out of power for that long. In summer. Elderly people. Okay? Think about that. Next time you vote Green and you drive more investment and government funding and subsidies into these intermittent power generation sources, you could be voting to kill people because of power outages for hours on end during the heat of summer. Okay? That's how the world works. That's how people need to think. They need to stop making these short-sighted decisions and thinking that, it's good, and then go have their bloody soy latte and, in their prutzy cafe. I'm getting sick of it. I'm getting sick of this stuff. It's just stupid. Stupid and short-sighted. That's the problem. So AEMO is working with industry to secure the maximum permissible reserve via the Reliability and Emergency Reserve Trader to ensure Victoria's reliability of supply meets the reliability standard this summer. See, the thing with power generation, we've got a lot of government involvement, we've got these regulatory body involvement. What if it was freed up a bit more? What if there was less restrictions? What if we didn't have a ban on nuclear power? How many people here would buy shares in a nuclear power company here in Australia? If there was a listing on the stock exchange, public listing, we're building a new plant, we're going to provide power at 1/4 the cost of anyone else in the country, who wouldn't buy shares in it if it was allowed? There would be people lining up. There'd be half the country that would be up in arms and wouldn't do it, but once it hit the market and they could see, my neighbour there is getting a power bill 1/4 of the bill of mine, I'll buy that one. Okay? Yeah, definitely. So we've got, I think that's enough. That's enough for today. We'll just go down here to, required actions, the summer readiness plan, commissioning of targeted transmission augmentations, dispatchable resources, reliability standards, 3-year strategic reserve, wholesale demand response, market reform, notice and mechanism of closure, and information transparency. So these are the 9 points that they're dealing with. And this is a bureaucratic organization, and I think they would be very, very sensible to not be politicizing particular energy production methodologies. That's obviously not within their mandate. It feels like it isn't from what I'm reading. Could be. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with this? Do you think I'm overreacting? You know, am I jumping to conclusions? Will it be fine? You know, will the risk of 250,000 to 1.3 million households being without power, it's just overblown? You know, it's Victoria. It doesn't get hot down there. Yeah, right. I grew up in Victoria. It gets bloody hot. Anyway, guys, like, share, and subscribe. Ding the bell to see my daily updates, and I'll talk to you all later. Take care.